My name is Meredith Parker, and at 32 years old, I own a hotel empire that started with nothing but determination and a vision. Growing up in a family obsessed with conventional success, I chose a different path that led them to label me the disappointment. When my aunt texted about the upcoming reunion, she ended with words that stung despite my achievements. No failures allowed at this prestigious venue. Little did they know, the exclusive hotel they chose was my flagship property. I decided not to correct their misconception just yet. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to join me on this journey of sweet, unexpected vindication. I grew up in a family where success was measured by a very specific yardstick. From an early age, my parents, aunts, uncles, and grandparents made it clear that the Parker name carried expectations. Perfect grades, prestigious universities, lucrative careers, marriages to equally successful partners, and picture-perfect children were the milestones by which worth was calculated. Family gatherings were less about connection and more about competition, with achievements announced and applauded while struggles or unconventional choices were met with pursed lips and whispered concerns. When I was 10, my parents divorced. My father, Richard, was a successful corporate attorney who worked 80-hour weeks and viewed family as another asset to manage. My mother, Diana, had put her own ambitions on hold to support his career and raise me. When they split, he kept the sprawling suburban house, the vacation property, and most importantly, the approval of the extended family. Mom and I moved to a modest two-bedroom apartment on the other side of town, and I watched her struggle to rebuild her life, taking accounting classes at the community college and working long hours at a small firm. The change in our financial circumstances was immediately reflected in how the rest of the family treated us. While we were still invited to events, there was a subtle shift in status. My cousins arrived in designer clothes while I wore mall brands. They went to private schools while I attended public. Summer meant exotic vacations for them, while Mom and I were lucky to spend a weekend at the local lake. After my grandparents passed away when I was 15, my Aunt Vivian assumed the role of family matriarch. As my father's older sister and a successful surgeon married to a hospital administrator, she wielded her influence like a scepter, determining who was in favor and who was found wanting. The annual family reunions became increasingly lavish under her direction, evolving from backyard barbecues to weekend getaways at expensive resorts. Each year, the bar of acceptable success seemed to rise a little higher. My cousins thrived in this environment. Olivia graduated from medical school and followed in Aunt Vivian's footsteps. Jackson earned his law degree and joined a prestigious firm. Sophia married a real estate developer and became the quintessential socialite. Even younger cousins like Tyler and Rebecca were being groomed for similar paths, with SAT tutors and college consultants hired before they even enter high school. Meanwhile, I found myself drawn to a completely different future. While my family valued status and materialism, I discovered a passion for hospitality during a summer job at a local hotel. There was something magical about creating spaces where people felt welcomed, comfortable, and cared for. I loved the blend of creativity and practicality, the challenge of anticipating needs, and the satisfaction of seeing guests enjoy their experience. When it came time for college applications, I broke the family tradition of Ivy League aspirations and chose a well-regarded hospitality management program instead. Aunt Vivian was appalled, my father disappointed, and even my supportive mother seemed worried about my choice. Hospitality management? Aunt Vivian had repeated during the Christmas dinner where I announced my plans. So, you want to make a career out of serving people? Parkers don't serve, they lead. It's hotel management, Vivian, my mother had defended weakly. There are executive positions in that field. At best, she'll end up as a glorified concierge, my father added, not even addressing me directly. It's not too late to apply to some proper schools, Meredith. Despite their disapproval, I held firm. I had saved enough from my part-time jobs to contribute to my education, and with my mother's support and student loans, I enrolled in my chosen program. Throughout college, I threw myself into my studies and internships, graduating with honors and a clear vision of what I wanted to achieve. After graduation, I made another decision that further distanced me from my family. Instead of returning to our hometown where my father could make some calls to secure me a management trainee position at a hotel chain, I moved to a new city across the country. I wanted to build something on my own terms, without the shadow of family connections or the weight of their judgments. The first few years were incredibly difficult. I worked multiple jobs to make rent in the expensive city, starting at the front desk of a budget hotel during the day and picking up evening shifts at a restaurant. I lived in a tiny studio apartment with secondhand furniture and learned to stretch every dollar. During this time, contact with my family dwindled. I called my mother weekly, but visits home became rare, limited to major holidays when I could afford the plane ticket. The questions at family gatherings became increasingly pointed. "Still checking people in at that little hotel?" Aunt Vivian would ask. "Any prospects for advancement?" My father would inquire in the same tone he might ask about dating prospects. "When are you going to get a real career?" Cousin Jackson once asked bluntly. Their lack of understanding was frustrating, but it also fueled my determination. I wasn't just going to succeed, I was going to redefine what success meant on my own terms. My journey from front desk clerk to hotel owner began at the Belmont, a small, somewhat shabby boutique hotel in the Arts District. The pay was modest, but what the position lacked in salary, it made up for an opportunity. Unlike at larger chain hotels where employees were siloed into specific departments, the Belmont's small staff meant I could learn every aspect of hotel operations. I arrived early and stayed late, volunteering for additional responsibilities whenever possible. When the night auditor called in sick, I offered to cover the shift. When the housekeeping manager needed help during a staffing shortage, I rolled up my sleeves and made beds alongside the team. I shadowed the maintenance staff, learning about building systems and preventative care. I absorbed everything like a sponge, filling notebooks with observations and ideas. 6 months into my time at the Belmont, I met the woman who would change my life. Eleanor Wilson, a former hotel executive turned consultant, arrived to help the owners improve their struggling business. In her 60s with silver hair and impeccable tailored suits, Eleanor moved through the hotel with the confidence of someone who had seen and solved every hospitality challenge imaginable. While the other staff seemed intimidated by her presence, I saw an opportunity. I approached her during her second day, offering a detailed list of observations about guest patterns and suggestions for service improvements I'd been collecting since my first week. "Most people in your position would be afraid to speak up," she remarked, studying me with interest after reviewing my notes. "With respect, Ms. Wilson, most people in my position are just passing through. I'm building a foundation." That conversation led to a mentorship that evolved into a friendship and eventually a business partnership. Under Eleanor's guidance, I accelerated my learning. She recommended books on hospitality management, finance, and sustainable business practices. She invited me to industry events, introducing me to her extensive network. Most importantly, she saw potential in me that my family had always overlooked. After 2 years at the Belmont, Eleanor approached me with an intriguing proposition. She had been watching the market and identified a growing segment of travelers seeking sustainable luxury experiences properties that offered high-end amenities with environmentally conscious practices. "There's a small property coming up for auction next month," she told me over coffee one morning. "Former bed and breakfast, good bones but needs work. The neighborhood is gentrifying and the location has potential. Sounds promising for someone," I replied, not immediately understanding her direction. "That someone could be you, Meredith. I'm willing to be your angel investor." The idea seemed simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. I had savings, but nowhere near enough to purchase and renovate a property. Eleanor explained that she would provide the majority of the capital as a silent partner, while I would contribute what I could and take on the role of managing owner. We would split the profits accordingly once the business became sustainable. The Parker Wilson Hotel opened 18 months later after a grueling renovation process where I learned more than I ever wanted to know about building permits, contractor negotiations, and the challenges of balancing luxury with sustainability. We sourced local materials, installed energy-efficient systems, and created partnerships with area businesses to provide authentic experiences for our guests. Every decision was a calculated risk, made more stressful by our limited budget. When choosing between renovating the lobby or the guest rooms, I opted to make the rooms exceptional while keeping the lobby simple but welcoming, reasoning that guests spend more time in their rooms and would forgive a modest lobby if their accommodations exceeded expectations. Instead of a full-service restaurant that would stretch our resources, we created an outstanding breakfast program featuring local ingredients and partnered with nearby restaurants to offer room service from their menus for a small delivery fee. The hotel opened with little fanfare, but something unexpected happened. Guests loved our thoughtful approach. They appreciated the comfortable beds with organic linens, the locally crafted furniture, the refillable glass water bottles that replaced plastic, and the small touches that showed care for both them and the environment. Within 6 months, we were booking at near capacity, with glowing reviews spreading across travel sites. Travel bloggers discovered us, praising our unique approach. A feature in a prominent sustainable travel magazine brought more attention. Larger hotel groups sent representatives to stay with us, curious about our model. By the end of our first year, we had not only broken even but were showing modest profits, far exceeding our business plan projections. Eleanor and I cautiously began planning our next steps. With our success, securing additional investment for a second property became easier. We found a struggling motel in a beautiful coastal area 2 hours from the city, perfect for weekend getaways. Using the lessons from our first venture, the renovation went more smoothly and the Parker Wilson Coastal opened 2 years after our flagship property. Our brand developed a reputation for thoughtful luxury that didn't compromise environmental values. We hired staff who shared our vision and invested in their development. I created detailed training programs that emphasized both technical skills and emotional intelligence, believing that genuine care couldn't be faked and was our true competitive advantage. As we expanded to a third location, then a fourth, industry recognition followed. I was named Hotelier to Watch by a leading travel publication. The Parker Wilson Hotel Group received awards for our sustainability initiatives and guest satisfaction metrics. Investment offers came from larger companies, but Eleanor and I remained committed to controlled growth that wouldn't compromise our values. Through all of the success, I maintained minimal contact with my family. My mother visited our first property and expressed genuine pride in what I had built, but the rest of the family remained largely unaware of my achievements. I sent Christmas cards and birthday messages, occasionally shared simplified updates when asked directly, but stopped seeking their approval or understanding. In the rare instances when I attended family events, I downplayed my accomplishments, tired of having them dismissed or misunderstood. Still working at hotels? They would ask, and I would simply nod and change the subject, not bothering to correct their assumption that I was still a front desk clerk rather than the CEO of a growing hospitality group. Their perception of me as the underachieving family member had calcified over the years, and I found it easier to accept their narrative than to fight for recognition they weren't prepared to give. By my 32nd birthday, the Parker Wilson Hotel Group included 6 properties across the country, including our crown jewel, the Emerald Grand. Located in a beautifully restored historic building in the heart of downtown, the Emerald Grand represented everything we had learned about creating exceptional guest experiences. From the living plant wall in the soaring lobby to the rooftop garden providing herbs and vegetables for our award-winning restaurant, every detail reflected our philosophy of sustainable luxury. I had just finished overseeing the opening week of our newest property when the message that would change everything arrived on my phone, a group text about the upcoming family reunion, to be held at none other than the Emerald Grand. The notification appeared while I was in a quarterly review meeting with my executive team. My phone, face down on the conference table, vibrated briefly. I ignored it until we finished discussing our sustainability goals for the upcoming year, then glanced at the screen during a coffee break. The group text was from Aunt Vivian, sent to the extended family thread that had been largely dormant for months except for obligatory birthday wishes and holiday greetings. Annual Parker family reunion planning is underway. Save the date for the first weekend in October. This year, we're elevating our gathering to reflect our family's continued success. We've secured a block of rooms at the Emerald Grand, the most exclusive new luxury hotel downtown. This property has been impossible to book, but Thomas has connections through his firm's corporate account. Details to follow for those who qualify to attend. I nearly dropped my phone. Of all the hotels in the city, they had chosen mine. The irony was almost too perfect. The Emerald Grand had indeed been difficult to book recently. We had intentionally opened reservations gradually to ensure flawless service as our staff grew accustomed to the property and its systems. Our marketing had been selective, focusing on building buzz through word of mouth rather than broad campaigns, creating exactly the air of exclusivity that would appeal to my status-conscious family. As I stood frozen in the hallway, additional messages began popping up on the thread. Olivia, we'll be there. Just finished my fellowship and accepted a position as head of cardiology at University Hospital. Jackson, count us in. Sarah and I just closed on our lake house, so this is perfect timing to celebrate. Sophia, absolutely. We're just back from a month in Europe, and Charlotte got accepted early decision to Princeton. The thread continued with cousins, aunts, and uncles sharing their latest achievements, each seemingly trying to outdo the last. My father chimed in about his recent appointment to a prestigious legal board. Even my younger cousins were showcased by their proud parents. Tyler's internship at a tech giant, Rebecca's performance in a national violin competition. After nearly 30 messages of achievements, addresses changed to houses in better neighborhoods, promotions, children's accomplishments, and luxury purchases, Aunt Vivian sent another message. What a blessing to be part of such a successful family. To help with planning, please reply with your current professional status and recent achievements so we can update our family newsletter to be distributed at the reunion. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. I could reveal my ownership of the Emerald Grand right then, imagining their collective shock. Instead, I decided on a simple, honest response without elaboration. Looking forward to seeing everyone. Still working in hospitality. 3 disappeared as Aunt Vivian typed her response. I waited, wondering if perhaps after all these years, she might ask for details or show genuine interest in my career path. Meredith, while we appreciate your response, this year's reunion is specifically designed to celebrate the Parker family's accomplishments and status. The Emerald Grand is an exclusive venue requiring a certain caliber of guest. As spaces are limited and costs are significant, we're prioritizing family members who have demonstrated success worthy of the Parker name. No failures allowed at this prestigious venue. Perhaps you can join next year if your situation improves. I stared at the message, the words blurring as tears welled in my eyes. Despite my professional success, financial security, and the respect I'd earned within my industry, my aunt's dismissal still had the power to wound me deeply. Decades of family conditioning don't disappear overnight, and in that moment, I felt like the disappointing cousin again, not measuring up to the Parker standard. No one in the thread objected to my exclusion. No one defended me or questioned Aunt Vivian's declaration. The conversation simply continued with logistical details about arrival times and dress codes for various events. My own father remained silent, neither supporting nor opposing my ostracism from the family gathering. I walked back into the conference room, composed on the outside, but shaking internally. My COO, Rachel, immediately noticed something was wrong. Everything okay, Meredith? You look like you've seen a ghost. Just family drama, I replied, trying to sound dismissive. Nothing important. We resumed our meeting, but my mind kept returning to the text messages. I had built an empire from nothing, created hundreds of jobs, pioneered sustainable practices in our industry, and earned the respect of peers and competitors alike. Yet to my family, I remained a failure because my success didn't fit their narrow definition of achievement. That evening, alone in my penthouse apartment with its view of the city skyline, I poured a glass of wine and reread the exchange. The hurt was evolving into something else: indignation, then resolve. The Emerald Grand was my creation, the physical manifestation of everything I had worked for. My family had unwittingly chosen my territory for their gathering, and they had no idea. I could simply reveal the truth. A quick text with a photo of my name on the building, the awards on my office wall, or even a feature article about me in Business Monthly would certainly shock them into recognition. But something held me back. After years of dismissal, I wanted more than just a surprised reaction to a text message. An idea began to form. What if I let them come to the reunion without revealing my connection to the property? What if I observed from behind the scenes, learning who they had become when they thought I wasn't watching? And what if, when the moment was right, I revealed the truth in person, forcing them to confront their misjudgment face to face? I opened my laptop and began typing an email to my management team. The Parker family reunion would receive our absolute best service, but under very specific conditions. This would be a weekend my family would never forget, though not for the reasons they expected. The weeks leading up to the reunion were filled with careful preparations and growing anxiety. I called an emergency meeting with my senior staff at the Emerald Grand to explain the unusual situation. My family will be staying with us for their reunion in October, I told the assembled department heads in our private conference room. They don't know I own this hotel or any of our properties. They think I'm still working entry-level jobs in hospitality. Rachel, who had been with me since our second hotel opened, looked confused. They don't read the business press? Your face was on the cover of Hospitality Today last month. The Parker family only reads publications that might feature them or their specific industries, I explained with a wry smile. Hospitality isn't on their radar unless they're being catered to. I laid out my plan. The family would receive impeccable service, with special attention to personalized touches based on information I provided. However, no one would reveal my connection to the property. I would monitor the reunion remotely and determine the right moment to make my presence known. Marcus, our head of security, had practical concerns. Do you want us to place additional cameras in the common areas they'll be using? For monitoring purposes only, of course. I considered this request carefully. Yes, but only in public spaces, and we'll delete all footage immediately after the event. This isn't about surveillance, it's about choosing the right moment for me to join the reunion. As my team asked questions and offered suggestions, I realized how fortunate I was to have built a work family that genuinely cared about me. These people knew my capabilities and valued my leadership in a way my biological family never had. After the meeting, I stayed late in my office, creating detailed profiles of each family member attending the reunion. I included their preferences, interests, and personal milestones that could be subtly acknowledged through our service. Despite everything, I wanted them to have a wonderful experience. Perhaps it was the hospitality professional in me, or perhaps I was still seeking some form of validation. The next morning, I met with Jessica, our guest experience director, to review the special welcome packages I designed for each room. These are incredibly thoughtful, she remarked, looking through the customized amenities. The vintage baseball card reproductions for your Uncle Robert, the special bath products for your cousin Sophia who has sensitive skin, the Princeton-themed treats for her daughter. You remember all these details about people who haven't really stayed connected with you? Her observation made me pause.
이게 시더.
Growing up in my family, remembering details was a survival skill. You needed to know everyone's accomplishments, preferences, and sore spots to navigate conversations safely. That's actually sad, Meredith. Maybe, I acknowledged. But it makes me good at my job. Our guests appreciate being truly seen. As the reunion date approached, I found myself increasingly conflicted about my plan. Part of me anticipated the vindication of revealing myself as the owner of the prestigious hotel where they were gathering. I imagined their shocked expressions, the stuttered apologies, the sudden recognition of my worth. But another part questioned my motives and whether this confrontation would bring any real healing. This internal debate intensified after a dinner with Eleanor, who had become more than a business partner over the years. Now in her 70s, she remained sharp as ever, seeing through my casual mention of the upcoming family reunion immediately. So you're planning a grand reveal, she said, cutting to the heart of the matter. A cinematic moment where you prove them all wrong. They excluded me from my own hotel, Eleanor. Called me a failure while planning to enjoy the fruits of my success. Don't I deserve to set the record straight? She sipped her wine thoughtfully. Of course you do. But ask yourself what you really want from this encounter. Validation? Apologies? Relationships? Revenge? Your answer should determine your approach. What if I don't know what I want? I admitted. Then wait and observe before acting. You've built an extraordinary life on your own terms, Meredith. Don't give them the power to define your success now. Her advice stayed with me as I continued preparations. I arranged to clear my schedule for the reunion weekend and reserved one of our smaller private suites that wasn't visible on the booking system. From there, I could monitor the security feeds from public areas and communicate with staff without being seen by my family. 3 days before the reunion, I conducted a final briefing with the staff who would be directly interacting with my family. The front desk team, concierge, restaurant staff, and housekeeping supervisors gathered in the training room. These guests are important to me personally, I explained. But please treat them exactly as you would any other valued guests. The only special instruction is not to mention my connection to the property unless I specifically indicate otherwise. What if they're difficult? Asked Daniel, one of our newer front desk agents. Some VIPs can be demanding. The question triggered a memory of Aunt Vivian berating a server at my college graduation dinner for bringing her sparkling water instead of still. The server had been close to tears by the time Vivian finished her dressing down. If anyone is inappropriate with you, follow our standard protocols. Document the incident and alert your supervisor. I don't expect issues, but no one has the right to mistreat our staff, regardless of their connection to me. As the meeting concluded, Rachel pulled me aside. Are you sure about this? Watching from the shadows while they enjoy your hotel without knowing feels. I don't know, not like you. I'm not hiding because I'm ashamed, I clarified. I'm giving myself time to assess the situation before engaging. They've had years to form their opinions of me. I'm taking a weekend to observe who they've become before deciding how much of myself to share with them going forward. The night before the reunion, I couldn't sleep. I paced my apartment, replaying family gatherings in my mind, remembering slights both subtle and overt. I recalled Aunt Vivian's dismissive tone when I explained my college choice, my father's absence at my graduation, cousins who stopped calling once they perceived we had nothing in common. I also remembered smaller moments. My mother's quiet pride when I gave her a tour of my first hotel, Uncle James asking genuine questions about my work during a Christmas dinner, Cousin Rebecca sending me a note after staying at a boutique hotel she thought I might find interesting. My family wasn't a monolith. Some had been cruel, others merely indifferent, and a few had shown moments of real connection. As I finally drifted asleep, I realized Eleanor was right. I needed to observe before deciding how to proceed. The grand revelation I had initially planned might satisfy my desire for vindication, but it might not serve the more complicated goal of healing. Morning arrived with a flurry of texts from my management team. The first members of the Parker family had checked in early, and the reunion weekend was officially beginning. I showered, dressed in a simple but elegant outfit that would allow me to blend in if necessary, and headed to the Emerald Grand through our private staff entrance. As I settled into the monitoring suite, I took a deep breath and prepared to watch my past collide with my present in ways my family couldn't possibly anticipate. From my private suite, I watched the steady arrival of family members throughout Friday afternoon. The security feeds showed them entering the soaring lobby with its signature living wall, faces upturned in appreciation of the crystal chandelier that I had commissioned from a sustainable glass artist. They rolled designer luggage across the reclaimed wood floors, exclaiming over the fresh flower arrangements and original artwork from local creators. My cousin Olivia and her husband were among the first to arrive, their twin boys running ahead to press their faces against the glass of the display case featuring artifacts from the building's historic past. Aunt Vivian and Uncle Thomas followed shortly after, him tipping the bellhop generously while she scrutinized every detail of the surroundings with an appraising eye. I felt a strange disconnection watching them through the cameras, like observing characters in a film rather than people I'd known my entire life. They looked older. Of course, it had been nearly 3 years since I'd seen most of them in person. New lines around eyes, different hairstyles, changes in posture and gait. Yet their essential mannerisms remained unchanged. Aunt Vivian's imperious head tilt when addressing staff, my father's habit of checking his watch every few minutes, Cousin Jackson's booming laugh designed to draw attention. My phone buzzed with a text from Daniel at the front desk. First wave, all checked in. Mrs. V. Parker requested room change from 5th floor to Emerald Suite on top floor. Explained Emerald Suite already booked, but offered Sapphire Suite instead. She accepted, but seemed displeased. I smiled despite myself. The Emerald Suite was currently unoccupied, but it was my private accommodation when I stayed at the property and wasn't in the regular reservation system. Aunt Vivian's displeasure at not getting exactly what she wanted was entirely predictable. Through the afternoon, I received similar updates from staff throughout the hotel. My family had spread out to explore the amenities with a proprietary air of people accustomed to luxury. Cousins by the rooftop pool, aunts examining the spa services menu, uncles in the whiskey bar comparing the selection to other establishments they frequented. At 6 o'clock, they gathered in the private dining room I had arranged for their welcome dinner. I switched the monitor to that camera feed and unmuted the audio, feeling a twinge of guilt at eavesdropping but justifying it as necessary reconnaissance. This place exceeds expectations, Uncle Robert announced, swirling his bourbon. Thomas, your firm's corporate connection really delivered. My father nodded, accepting unearned credit. The managing partner uses this hotel for important clients. Said it's the best in the city, despite being relatively new. The sustainability focus is a bit much, Aunt Vivian commented, gesturing toward the information card on the table detailing our farm-to-table practices. But I suppose it's trendy right now. Actually, I appreciate it, my cousin Tyler interjected. My generation is more conscious about environmental impact. Companies that build it into their business model rather than treating it as an afterthought are leading the way. I felt a rush of appreciation for Tyler, who at 25 was the youngest adult in the family. He had always been quieter at gatherings, overshadowed by louder personalities. Hearing him speak up for values that aligned with mine was unexpected and warming. The rooftop garden is incredible, added his sister Rebecca. The guide said they grow herbs and vegetables for the restaurant. I took a bunch of pictures for inspiration. The conversation shifted to updates on family members who couldn't attend, then to a discussion of the weekend's agenda. Aunt Vivian had planned a packed schedule. Breakfast followed by a private historical tour of the city, lunch at an exclusive restaurant, afternoon shopping in the design district, and a formal dinner back at the hotel. Sunday would feature brunch and a family photo session before departures. Has anyone heard from Meredith recently? Uncle James asked during a lull in the planning discussion. Seems odd to have a family reunion without all the family. A brief silence fell over the table. I leaned closer to the screen, heart suddenly racing. She was invited, Aunt Vivian said primly. But given her circumstances, it didn't seem appropriate. This weekend is a significant investment. What circumstances? James pressed. Last I heard, she was working in hotel management. People need hotels. Front desk clerk, my father corrected. And yes, it's honest work, but this weekend is about celebrating family achievements. The Parker legacy of excellence. I flinched at his dismissive tone and inaccurate description of my career. Even if I had remained a front desk clerk, the disdain in his voice revealed how little he valued service professions. I always liked Meredith, Cousin Sophia's daughter Charlotte piped up. She sent me that nice card and bookstore gift certificate when I got into Princeton. None of my other relatives did that. Another awkward silence followed, broken by Aunt Vivian changing the subject to tomorrow's activities. I sat back, processing what I'd witnessed. The family's perception of me was exactly as I'd expected: outdated, dismissive, and largely uninformed. Yet there were also unexpected allies: James asking about me, Tyler's environmental values, Charlotte remembering my small kindness. Throughout dinner, I continued to observe, noting how some family members treated the servers with respect while others barely acknowledged them as people. I watched body language and facial expressions during conversations, seeing genuine connections between some relatives and purely performative interactions between others. By the time they finished dessert, I had identified clear factions within the family. Aunt Vivian, my father, and cousins Jackson and Olivia formed the core status group, the ones most invested in appearances and achievements. Uncle James, Tyler, Rebecca, and a few others seemed more authentic and less concerned with the Parker family image. The rest fell somewhere in between, following Vivian's lead, but not necessarily sharing her values. As they dispersed for the evening, some heading to the hotel bar while others retired to their rooms, I felt a shift in my perspective. My initial plan for a dramatic revelation seemed increasingly simplistic in the face of the complex family dynamics I'd observed. These weren't cartoon villains to be vanquished with a gotcha moment, but flawed human beings operating from their own limited worldviews. I texted Rachel. Change of plans. No confrontation yet. Continuing to observe tomorrow. Her reply came quickly. Probably wise. By the way, your aunt requested the manager's personal phone number in case of issues overnight. I gave her the duty manager's number instead. I smiled, imagining Vivian's potential late-night demands. Good call. Keep me posted on any significant developments. I left my monitoring suite and took the service elevator to a side exit, needing fresh air and perspective. Walking the perimeter of the hotel property in the cool evening air, I reflected on what I'd seen and heard. The family gathering that had once seemed so important, so defining, now appeared smaller somehow. They weren't the arbiters of success or failure. I had built my own definition, created my own path. As I completed my circuit and prepared to return to my apartment for the night, I noticed a figure sitting alone on one of the garden benches. The distinctive silver hair identified my father immediately. He was staring at his phone, scrolling through what looked like photographs. Though the rational part of me said to avoid contact, something pulled me toward him, a lingering desire for connection, perhaps, or simple curiosity. I approached from an angle where the garden lighting wouldn't immediately reveal my face. Beautiful evening, I commented casually, as if I were just another hotel guest enjoying the grounds. He looked up, nodded politely, then returned to his phone. It is indeed. The gardens here are special, I continued, remaining in the shadows. All native plants, designed to support local pollinators while minimizing water usage. You sound like my nephew, he replied with a small chuckle. He hasn't stopped talking about the sustainability features since we arrived. Smart young man, I observed. Yes, though his generation seems preoccupied with these issues. He finally put his phone down and looked more directly toward me, though still not recognizing me in the dim light. Are you here for business or pleasure? The irony of the question almost made me laugh. A bit of both, I suppose. I have connections to this property. He nodded, seemingly uninterested in elaborating on the conversation with the stranger. After an awkward moment, he stood. Well, enjoy your evening. I should join my family inside. As he walked away, I noticed he had left his phone on the bench. I called after him. Sir, your phone. He turned, walking back to retrieve it. As he reached for the device, he finally looked directly at my face, recognition dawning in his eyes. Meredith. Hello, Dad. The moment I had been both anticipating and dreading had arrived, not through my careful planning, but through simple chance. As we stood facing each other in the garden, I realized that all my preparations hadn't readied me for the reality of this confrontation. The weekend was about to take an unexpected turn. My father stood frozen, his outstretched hand still reaching for the phone I was holding. In the soft garden lighting, I could see the shock on his face transform into confusion. What are you doing here? He finally managed. I have connections to this property, I repeated, handing him his phone. He took it mechanically, his brow furrowed. Did Vivian know you were coming? She said you couldn't make it. The misunderstanding was almost comical. He assumed I was there as a guest, perhaps having scraped together enough money to join the reunion after all. It hadn't even occurred to him that I might have any other relationship to the Emerald Grand. Aunt Vivian made it very clear that failures weren't welcome at this prestigious venue. I replied, unable to keep the edge from my voice. But as it happens, I have a standing invitation. Meredith, you know how she gets. The family has certain standards. He glanced around uncomfortably. Are you staying here? How did you manage that on a hotel clerk salary? The persistent misconception finally broke through my composure. I laughed, the sound sharp in the quiet garden. Dad, I'm not a hotel clerk. I haven't been for a very long time. Oh, did you change industries? He seemed momentarily interested, perhaps hoping I'd finally pursued a career he would consider respectable. No. I'm still in hospitality. I gestured toward the building behind us. In fact, I own this hotel. And 5 others. He stared at me, blinking rapidly as he processed this information. That's not possible. This is a multi-million-dollar property. The Parker Wilson Hotel Group, I said slowly. Look at the discreet logo on your room key card. My mother's maiden name and my mentor's surname. I've owned and operated hotels for nearly a decade now. Why didn't you tell us? His voice held accusation rather than apology or pride. I stopped trying to impress this family years ago, I answered honestly. You decided who I was and what I was worth when I chose hospitality management over law school. None of you ever really asked about my career or showed interest in my path. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I remembered from childhood when he was genuinely distressed. So all this time when you thought I was a failure? I finished for him. I was building a hotel empire that emphasizes both luxury and sustainability. The kind of place where the Parker family would choose to hold their exclusive reunion. My father seemed genuinely at a loss for words, his carefully constructed worldview visibly crumbling. Finally, he asked, "Does anyone else know?" My staff knows, of course. But I instructed them not to mention it. I wanted to observe how my family behaves when they think no one important is watching. The implication of my words hit him hard. I could see him mentally reviewing his interactions with hotel employees over the past several hours, wondering what they knew, what they thought of him. I should tell the others, he said finally. No. My response was firm. I'll decide when and how that happens. For now, I'd appreciate your discretion. You're planning some kind of dramatic reveal, he said, understanding dawning. To embarrass us. I admitted. But watching all of you today has made me reconsider. This isn't about humiliation, Dad. It's about recognition of who I actually am versus who you've decided I am. Our conversation was interrupted by the appearance of Aunt Vivian at the garden entrance, her imperious voice carrying across the space. Richard? We're waiting for you for the nightcap discussion about tomorrow's schedule. She hadn't noticed me yet, partially concealed as I was by an ornamental shrub. My father looked from her to me, clearly torn about how to proceed. Go, I said quietly. We'll continue this conversation another time. He hesitated, then nodded slightly before walking toward his sister. Coming, Vivian. I remained in the garden for a long time after they left, contemplating the unexpected encounter and its implications for my plans. The confrontation with my father had been unplanned and incomplete, but it had revealed something important. He wasn't hostile or dismissive when learning of my success, just genuinely shocked. The narrative of my failure had been so deeply ingrained that evidence to the contrary simply didn't compute. By the time I returned to my apartment, I had decided on a new approach. Rather than orchestrating a public revelation designed for maximum impact, I would have individual or small group conversations with family members, allowing for more authentic exchanges. Saturday morning brought a flurry of texts from Rachel and other staff members. The family had gathered for breakfast in the private dining room, and everything was proceeding according to Aunt Vivian's meticulous schedule. My father was acting strangely quiet and distracted, but no one seemed to suspect anything unusual. I monitored the security feeds periodically throughout the morning as the family departed for their historical tour, then returned for lunch. I was beginning to plan my next move when an urgent call came from the front desk. Miss Parker, we have a situation. Daniel's voice was tense. Your aunt is insisting on speaking with the owner of the hotel immediately. She's quite upset about the arrangements for tonight's formal dinner. What's the issue? I asked, already moving toward the door. She wants the dinner moved from the main restaurant private room to the rooftop terrace, but we're fully booked there with a wedding reception. When the events manager explained this, She demanded to speak to whoever has the authority to make things happen. She's in the lobby now, telling everyone within earshot about her family's importance. I sighed. I'll be right down. I took a moment to check my appearance in the mirror. I was wearing a simple yet elegant black dress that I had planned to change out of before meeting any family members. No time for that now. I applied fresh lipstick, straightened my shoulders, and headed for the elevator. The scene in the lobby was exactly as I had feared. Aunt Vivian stood at the center of a small crowd, her voice carrying as she berated the event's manager, a capable young woman named Tessa who had been with us since opening. "I don't think you understand who we are," Vivian was saying as I approached. "The Parker family doesn't accept not possible as an answer. I want to speak to the owner, not some employee without decision-making authority." "I believe I can help with that," I said, stepping into the circle. Vivian turned, irritation clear on her face until recognition dawned. "Meredith? What are you doing here?" "I work here," I replied simply. "As what?" "A server." The dismissive tone was so familiar it almost made me smile. "As the owner, actually." I extended my hand to Tessa. "Thank you for your patience, Tessa. I'll handle this from here." The lobby had gone completely silent. I became aware that other members of my family had gathered around the edges of the confrontation, my father looking resigned, cousins with expressions ranging from shock to disbelief, Uncle James with what appeared to be a suppressed smile. "This is absurd," Vivian finally sputtered. "You can't possibly own this hotel." "I own this hotel and the entire Parker Wilson Hotel Group," I corrected calmly. "I founded the company 8 years ago with my business partner. The Emerald Grand is our flagship property." "Richard." Vivian turned to my father. "Did you know about this?" He nodded reluctantly. "I just found out last night." "It's true, Vivian. This is Meredith's hotel." The murmurs from the gathered family members grew louder. I noticed the staff had formed a protective semicircle behind me, a gesture of solidarity that warmed me immensely. "Why didn't you tell us?" Cousin Jackson demanded, pushing forward. "All these years, you let us think that I was a failure?" I finished for him. "Yes, I did. When I chose a path different from what the family expected, you all decided my worth without bothering to actually understand my choices or my journey. None of you asked about my career with genuine interest. None of you celebrated my early successes or supported me through challenges." "We didn't know," Sophia protested weakly. "You didn't want to know," I corrected. "It was easier to categorize me as the family disappointment than to reconsider your narrow definition of success." Aunt Vivian had recovered her composure somewhat, her expression hardening. "So this entire reunion, our being here, it was all some elaborate scheme to humiliate us? To prove us wrong?" "Actually, no," I replied honestly. "You chose this hotel without any input from me. I only learned about the reunion when you sent that group text explicitly excluding me from attending because I was deemed unworthy of the venue." The irony wasn't lost on the gathered family members. Several looked distinctly uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact with either Vivian or me. As for my plans, I continued. I initially considered letting the weekend play out without revealing my connection to the property. Then I thought about orchestrating a dramatic revelation. But watching all of you yesterday made me realize something important. I looked around at the faces of my relatives, seeing them clearly perhaps for the first time. This family contains multitudes. Some of you have been dismissive and unkind. Others have shown moments of genuine connection. Many fall somewhere in between. I don't want revenge or humiliation. I want recognition for who I actually am, not who you've decided I am. Uncle James stepped forward, extending his hand. "I, for one, would love to hear about how you built all this, Meredith. It's damn impressive." His simple acknowledgement broke the tension somewhat. Others began to murmur agreement, though Aunt Vivian remained stony-faced. As for the dinner tonight, I addressed my aunt directly. The rooftop is indeed booked for a wedding that's been planned for over a year. I won't displace another family celebration for our convenience. However, I've taken the liberty of enhancing the private dining experience originally planned. The executive chef has prepared a special menu, and we've arranged for some unique entertainment I think you'll enjoy." "How generous," Vivian said stiffly. "Though I suppose it costs you nothing when you own the place." The nastiness of the comment hung in the air. Several family members looked embarrassed on her behalf. "Actually, Aunt Vivian," I replied evenly, "I've built this business on the principle that everything we do has a cost, not just financial, but environmental and human. Nothing is free, and acknowledging those costs is part of responsible ownership." I turned to address the whole family. "You're all welcome to continue enjoying the Emerald Grand's amenities as my guests. I hope you'll take the opportunity to really see what I've built, not just the physical space, but the culture and values it represents. For those who are interested, I'm happy to give a behind-the-scenes tour this afternoon instead of the shopping excursion." "I'd like that," Tyler said immediately. Several others nodded in agreement. "Excellent. We'll meet in the lobby at 2. I smiled at the group, then turned to Tessa. "Please make sure the Parker party has everything they need for a wonderful stay." As I walked away, I heard the excited chatter break out behind me. Questions, exclamations, probably some criticisms as well. But for the first time in my adult life, I felt truly seen by my family, not as they wished me to be, but as I actually was. Rachel fell into step beside me as I headed toward the back offices. "That was not how we planned to handle this," she observed with a wry smile. "No," I agreed. "But I think it was how it needed to happen." "Some of them seemed genuinely impressed," she noted. "Others not so much." "That's family for you," I replied. "Complex, frustrating, occasionally wonderful." "So what happens now?" she asked as we reached my office. I considered the question carefully. "Now we show them exactly what success looks like on my terms. And then we let them decide what kind of relationship they want going forward." The confrontation hadn't gone according to my careful plans, but perhaps that was for the best. Real life rarely follows a script, and real relationships can't be choreographed. As I prepared for the afternoon tour, I felt lighter than I had in years. The burden of family expectations finally lifted, not by their approval, but by my own self-acceptance. The days following the confrontation brought a whirlwind of conversations, revelations, and shifting family dynamics. The behind-the-scenes tour on Saturday afternoon became a turning point for many relationships. As I guided family members through the operational heart of the Emerald Grand, explaining our sustainability initiatives, employment practices, and guest experience philosophy, I watched their perceptions of me visibly transform. Tyler peppered me with questions about our green building certification and energy systems. Cousin Olivia, the cardiologist, was particularly interested in our wellness program for employees. Even Jackson, usually aloof and competitive, seemed genuinely impressed by the financial models I shared regarding our growth and investment strategies. "You've built something remarkable here," Uncle James told me as we stood on the rooftop garden, watching the wedding setup in progress. "Not just successful, but meaningful. That's rare." Not everyone was so receptive. Aunt Vivian participated minimally in the tour, her expression oscillating between disbelief and displeasure. My father seemed conflicted, pride in my achievements battling with embarrassment over his previous dismissal. Several cousins maintained a careful distance, perhaps processing their own feelings about our changed dynamic. The formal dinner that evening was a study in contrasts. Some family members engaged with me enthusiastically, eager to learn more about my journey and share their own stories with new authenticity. Others maintained the familiar patterns of one-upmanship and status signaling, though now with an undercurrent of uncertainty. By Sunday morning, when the family gathered for the farewell brunch, natural factions had formed. Those interested in genuine connection sat at my table, while others clustered around Aunt Vivian, maintaining the old hierarchy. The family photo session became an apt metaphor for our new reality's separate groupings within the larger family frame, some bridges rebuilt, and others perhaps permanently altered. As departures began, individual family members sought me out for private conversations. These moments revealed the true impact of the weekend's revelations. Rebecca hugged me tightly. "I always knew you were doing something amazing," she whispered. "Thanks for showing me there are different paths to success." Jackson approached with uncharacteristic humility. I owe you an apology for some things I've said over the years, he admitted. I never really understood what you were building. Thank you, I replied. That means a lot. Would you be open to having lunch sometime? I'd like to hear more about how you structured your first property acquisition. Sarah and I have been thinking about diversifying our investments. I agreed, recognizing the olive branch for what it was, an acknowledgement of my expertise and a desire for a more equal relationship. Not all conversations were so positive. Aunt Vivian cornered me as she waited for her car. I suppose you think you've won, she said, her voice low. Proven us all wrong. This isn't about winning or losing, Aunt Vivian. It never was. You humiliated me in front of the entire family. I shook my head. I simply revealed the truth. Any humiliation comes from your own actions and assumptions. She drew herself up. The Parker family has standards, traditions. Your father and I were raised to value certain paths. And I respect that those paths worked for you. But they weren't right for me, and I found my own way. All I ever wanted was for my family to respect that choice. Well, she said stiffly, I suppose the results speak for themselves. Though I still maintain there are more prestigious industries than hospitality. It wasn't an apology or even an acknowledgement of her misjudgment, but it was perhaps all I could expect from a woman who had spent decades defining herself through a rigid view of success. I wished her a safe journey home, recognizing that some relationships would never fully heal but could perhaps reach a state of respectful distance. My father's departure was the most complex. He lingered in the lobby after most others had left, clearly wanting to speak but struggling to find the words. I missed it, he finally said. All these years, I completely missed who you were becoming. You saw what you expected to see? I replied. We all do that sometimes. I should have asked more questions, shown more interest. I just assumed, he trailed off, that I was floundering because I chose a different path than yours. I finished for him. He nodded, looking genuinely regretful. I'm proud of what you've built, Meredith. Truly. And I'm sorry I wasn't there to see it happen. Thank you for saying that. Do you think there's a way forward for us? He asked hesitantly. I considered the question carefully. I think so. But it would need to be a new relationship, not a continuation of the old pattern. I'm not the daughter you imagined, and that's okay. I'm someone better. I'm authentically myself. He nodded slowly. I'd like to get to know that person. I'd like that too, I replied, surprising myself with how much I meant it. We agreed to monthly dinners, a small but significant step toward rebuilding our relationship on more equal, authentic terms. In the weeks that followed, I reflected deeply on the reunion experience and the lessons it offered. The professional triumph of the Emerald Grand's success paled in comparison to the personal growth I'd achieved in confronting my family dynamics. I began to understand that true success included not just achievement and recognition, but also the courage to define your own path and the wisdom to build relationships that supported authentic self-expression. This insight led me to create a mentorship program for hospitality students from underprivileged backgrounds, offering not just financial support but guidance on navigating industry challenges and maintaining personal values in professional contexts. The first cohort of 5 students began their internships at Parker Wilson Properties 6 months after the reunion, bringing fresh perspectives and reminding me of my own early struggles and aspirations. I also reached out to younger family members who might feel similar pressures to conform to narrow definitions of success. Monthly video calls with Tyler evolved into a genuine friendship as he navigated his own career path in sustainable technology. When Rebecca decided to pursue culinary arts instead of the law career her parents expected, I offered both emotional support and practical advice on building professional resilience. Not all family relationships improved after the reunion revelation. Aunt Vivian maintained a frosty distance, communicating primarily through carefully worded holiday cards. Several cousins drifted back into the comfortable pattern of minimal contact. But these distances no longer bothered me as they once had. I had learned to value quality of connection over family obligation, building a chosen family of friends, colleagues, and those relatives who genuinely sought mutual understanding. Eleanor, my mentor and business partner, observed these changes with approval. "You've always been exceptional at creating welcoming spaces for others," she told me during our quarterly planning retreat. "Now you're finally creating the right boundaries for yourself." "It's liberating," I admitted. I spent so many years seeking approval from people who weren't equipped to appreciate my choices. "That's the thing about family," she mused. "They know our past so well that sometimes they can't see who we've become. But that doesn't diminish your accomplishments or your worth." Her words crystallized the most important lesson I had learned. Success isn't defined by others' recognition but by alignment with personal values and purpose. My family's approval or disapproval didn't change the reality of what I had built or who I had become. Understanding this truth was far more valuable than any vindication the reunion had provided. A year after the infamous family reunion, I hosted a different kind of gathering at the Emerald Grand. This one celebrated the 5th anniversary of the hotel's opening and included the extended Parker Wilson team employees, investors, community partners, and yes, those family members who had shown genuine interest in being part of my life on authentic terms. As I stood addressing the diverse group that represented my professional journey and personal growth, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the path that had led me here, even the painful parts. "Success looks different for each of us," I told the assembled guests. "For me, it's creating spaces where people feel valued, where sustainability isn't just a marketing term but a core practice, and where excellence doesn't require compromise of principles. The greatest achievement isn't seeing my name on a building, it's building something that reflects my deepest values." I glanced around the room, noting my father sitting next to Eleanor, Uncle James deep in conversation with our head of community outreach, Tyler showing Rebecca our newest energy monitoring system. These connections, based on genuine interest and mutual respect, represented a more meaningful success than any family validation I had once craved. "The most important thing I've learned," I concluded, "is that you don't need permission to write your own success story. Sometimes the people closest to you will be the last to recognize your achievements, and that's okay.
Build anyway. Create anyway. Succeed anyway.
The right people will see your value, and eventually, some of those who dismissed you might come around. But your worth never depended on their recognition in the first place." As applause filled the room, I felt completely at peace with my journey. The family reunion that had once seemed so important now appeared as just one chapter in a much larger story, one that I was continuing to write on my own terms. Have you ever had to redefine success for yourself despite what others expected? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if this story resonated with you. Remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay true to your vision even when others don't understand it. Thank you for joining me today, and may you find the courage to build your own definition of success.